The coffee shop on Main Street in Bakersfield, California, was nearly empty that Tuesday afternoon. Sarah Mitchell sat at a corner table, her hands wrapped around a lukewarm cup of coffee she'd been nursing for the past 20 minutes. She checked her phone again. He was late, 15 minutes late. Her friend Tracy had set up this blind date, insisting that Brad was a nice guy, successful and ready to settle down. Sarah had been hesitant. Dating as a single mother of 5 wasn't easy, and she'd learned the hard way that most men ran for the hills the moment they heard the number 5. But Tracy had been persistent, and Sarah had finally agreed. She'd even splurged on a new blouse, left the kids with her neighbor Mrs. Henderson, and driven 40 minutes into town. Now, as she watched the door, doubt crept in like an old familiar friend. When Brad finally walked in, Sarah recognized him from the photo Tracy had shown her. Tall, clean-cut, wearing an expensive watch and designer jeans. He spotted her and walked over. No apology for being late, just a quick nod as he sat down. "So you're Sarah," he said, flagging down the waitress before even looking at her properly. "Yes, and you must be Brad." "Thanks for meeting me," Sarah replied, trying to sound cheerful despite the knot forming in her stomach. He ordered an espresso and leaned back in his chair, sizing her up with an expression that made her feel like she was being interviewed for a job she didn't want. "Tracy told me you work at the elementary school," he said. "That's nice. Admin work?" "I'm a teacher's aide," Sarah answered. "I work with special needs kids. It's rewarding." Brad nodded absently, scrolling through his phone. His disinterest was palpable, but Sarah pressed on, determined to make at least some conversation. "So Tracy mentioned you're in real estate?" He launched into a monologue about his latest property deals, dropping figures and addresses like they were supposed to impress her. Sarah smiled politely, sipping her coffee, wondering how quickly she could escape. Then came the question she'd been dreading. "So, do you have kids?" Sarah hesitated for just a second. "Yes, I have 5. The change in Brad's expression was instant. His eyebrows shot up, and he actually leaned back as if she just told him she had a contagious disease. "5?" he repeated, his voice rising slightly. "5 kids?" "Yes," Sarah said quietly, feeling her cheeks flush. "They're great kids, ages 3 to 12. Brad let out a low whistle, shaking his head. "Wow, that's a lot." He set down his espresso cup with a decisive clink. "Look, Sarah, I'm going to be straight with you. I'm looking for someone I can travel with, someone who has time for a relationship. 5 kids? That's not my problem. That's a full-time job right there." Sarah felt the sting of his words like a slap across the face. She'd heard variations of this before, but it never got easier. "I understand," she managed to say, her voice tight. Brad was already standing up, pulling out his wallet and tossing a $10 bill on the table. "I've got a showing in 30 minutes anyway. Good luck with everything." And just like that, he was gone. Sarah sat there, frozen, staring at the $10 bill like it was evidence of her complete humiliation. The waitress, a young woman with kind eyes and multiple piercings, came over and quietly cleared Brad's cup. "Men like that aren't worth your tears, honey," she said softly. Sarah blinked rapidly, refusing to cry in public. She gathered her purse and stood up, walking quickly toward the exit. She just wanted to get home, hug her kids, and forget this entire disaster. As she stepped out onto the sidewalk, the rumble of motorcycle engines filled the air. 3 Harley-Davidsons pulled up to the curb right in front of the coffee shop, their chrome gleaming in the afternoon sun. The riders dismounted, all wearing leather vests with the distinctive Hells Angels insignia. Sarah froze. In Bakersfield, everyone knew about the Hells Angels clubhouse on the east side of town. These weren't men you messed with. The tallest one, a broad-shouldered man with a thick gray beard and arms covered in tattoos, pulled off his helmet and looked directly at her. His eyes, surprisingly warm, took in her red-rimmed eyes and tense posture. "You all right, ma'am?" he asked, his voice a deep rumble that somehow felt protective rather than threatening. Sarah nodded quickly. "I'm fine, thank you." But she wasn't fine. And somehow, this stranger with the skull rings and leather vest could see right through her lie. The bearded biker didn't move. His two companions, a wiry man with a shaved head and a younger guy with sleeve tattoos, hung back near their bikes, watching the interaction with quiet interest. "We saw that guy storm out of there like his hair was on fire," the bearded man said. "You didn't deserve whatever he said to you." Sarah felt her composure cracking. "It's nothing. Just a bad date. Happens to everyone, right?" "Not like that," the younger biker chimed in. "Dude looked like a real piece of work." Sarah let out a shaky laugh that turned into something dangerously close to a sob. "He found out I have 5 kids and suddenly he had somewhere else to be. Said it wasn't his problem." The 3 men exchanged glances. The bearded one shook his head slowly. "5 kids? That makes you a warrior, not a problem. Name's Ryder, by the way. This is Gunner and that's Smokey." "Sarah," she replied automatically, still processing the fact that she was having a conversation with members of the Hells Angels on a public sidewalk. "Look, Sarah," Ryder continued, his tone gentle despite his intimidating appearance. "Guys like that don't know what real strength looks like. Raising 5 kids on your own? That takes more guts than anything I've ever done, and I've been riding with this club for 23 years. The kindness in his words broke something open inside her. Sarah felt the tears she'd been holding back start to spill over. She wiped them away quickly, embarrassed. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't be falling apart in front of strangers. I need to get home. My neighbor's watching the kids and she can only stay until 5. Gunner, the wiry one, stepped forward. "You got a good support system? Family nearby?" Sarah shook her head. "My parents passed away years ago. My ex-husband moved to Oregon with his new wife. It's just me and the kids, and some good neighbors when I can find them." "What about childcare?" Smokey asked. "You got regular help?" "Not really," Sarah admitted. "Mrs. Henderson helps when she can, but she's 76. I feel guilty asking her. Most babysitters here 5 kids and triple their rates. I mostly just don't go out." The weight of her isolation hung in the air between them. She worked, came home, took care of her children, and repeated the cycle day after day. This coffee date had been her first attempt at something for herself in over a year, and it had ended in spectacular failure. Ryder pulled a card from his wallet and held it out to her. "This has the clubhouse number on it. You ever need someone to watch those kids so you can have an evening to yourself, you call. We'll send someone over." Sarah stared at the card like it was a winning lottery ticket. "You're joking." "Dead serious," Ryder said. "We take care of our community. And right now, you look like you could use some taking care of." Sarah held the card in her trembling hand, reading the simple black text, "Bakersfield chapter." A phone number. Nothing fancy, but it felt like a lifeline. "I can't ask you to do that. You don't even know me," she said, though part of her desperately wanted to believe this was real. "You didn't ask. We offered," Gunner said simply. "Look, we're not saints, but we believe in looking out for people who are doing their best in this world. And you're clearly doing your best." Sarah thought about her kids waiting at home. Emma, her 12-year-old, who had started acting like a second mother to her younger siblings. Marcus, 10, who never complained about wearing hand-me-downs. The twins, Olivia and Owen, 8 years old, always energetic despite their shared bedroom. And little Chloe, just 3, who still asked when Daddy was coming home. They deserved better than a mother who was too exhausted and broke to give them anything beyond the basics. They deserved birthday parties and zoo trips and a mom who smiled more than she cried. "Why would you do this for a stranger?" Sarah asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Ryder's expression softened. "My sister was a single mom. 3 kids. Worked herself to the bone. Pride wouldn't let her ask for help. She had a stroke at 39 from the stress. Survived it, but it changed her life forever. I swore after that I'd never watch another mom struggle alone when I could do something about it." The raw honesty in his voice convinced her this wasn't a joke or some kind of trick. These men, despite their rough exteriors and fearsome reputation, were offering genuine help. If you're following this story and rooting for Sarah like we are, take a moment to subscribe to the channel, because what happens next is going to restore your faith in humanity. Sometimes help comes from the most unexpected places, and Sarah's life is about to change in ways she never imagined. Sarah tucked the card carefully into her purse. I don't know what to say except thank you. Really. Don't thank us yet, Smokey said with a grin. Wait until you see Gunnar trying to help with homework. Math wasn't his strong suit. The men laughed, and even Sarah found herself smiling genuinely for the first time that afternoon. We mean it about calling, Ryder said as they moved toward their bikes. Friday night, Saturday afternoon, whenever. You need a break, we'll make it happen. And Sarah? That guy who walked out? He's going to regret it for the rest of his life. You remember that. They mounted their motorcycles, the engines roaring to life in perfect synchronization. Ryder gave her a final nod, and then they were gone, leaving Sarah standing on the sidewalk, holding a business card that suddenly felt like the most valuable thing she owned. She walked to her car, her mind racing. Could she really call them? Would they actually show up? 2 weeks passed before Sarah found the courage to make the call. It was a Thursday evening, and she'd just received an invitation to a school district meeting about special education programs. Normally, she would have declined. No babysitter meant no meeting. But this time, she pulled out the card. Her hands shook as she dialed the number. A gruff voice answered on the second ring. Bakersfield chapter. Hi, my name is Sarah Mitchell. I met Ryder and some others outside a coffee shop a couple weeks ago. He said I could call if I needed help with my kids. There was a pause. Then she heard the voice call out away from the phone. Ryder, is that Mom you met downtown? Within seconds, Ryder's warm voice came through. Sarah, I was hoping you'd call. What do you need? There's a meeting at the school district tomorrow night at 7. It's about programs for special needs kids, and I really should be there. But I understand if it's too short notice or if we'll be there at 6:30. Ryder interrupted. How many babysitters you want? I have 5 kids, Sarah said, feeling that familiar defensive tension. I remember. I'm asking how many of us you want at your house. 1, 2, 3? Sarah almost laughed at the absurdity of having multiple Hell's Angels members babysitting her children. Maybe 2? If that's okay. Perfect. Text me your address. We'll bring pizza. The next evening, Sarah paced nervously in her living room. The house was as clean as she could manage with 5 children. Emma had helped corral the younger ones, and everyone was on their best behavior, sensing their mother's anxiety. At exactly 6:30, 2 motorcycles pulled up outside. Ryder and Gunnar dismounted, each carrying large pizza boxes. Sarah opened the door before they could knock. The kids had gathered behind her, eyes wide with curiosity and a hint of fear at the sight of these leather-clad giants. Everyone, these are my friends Ryder and Gunnar. They're gonna hang out with you while I go to my meeting, Sarah said, trying to sound confident. Ryder crouched down to the kids' level, his intimidating exterior softening instantly. Hey there. Who wants pepperoni and who wants cheese? Little Chloe, never one to be shy, stepped forward. I want both. Gunnar laughed, a deep belly laugh that filled the small living room. A girl after my own heart. Both it is. Within minutes, the tension dissolved. Marcus was showing Gunnar his comic book collection. The twins were explaining the rules of their made-up card game to Ryder. Emma sat at the kitchen table doing homework, occasionally glancing over with cautious approval. And Chloe had somehow convinced Ryder to wear a plastic tiara while she painted his nails with washable marker. Sarah stood at the doorway, keys in hand, watching this impossible scene unfold. She felt something she hadn't felt in years. The freedom to leave her house without crushing guilt or worry. You better get going or you'll be late, Ryder said, looking up at her with a 3-year-old's tiara perched on his head. Sarah returned home 3 hours later, her mind buzzing with new information about educational resources and support programs she hadn't known existed. For the first time in years, she'd been able to focus completely on something other than immediate survival. She opened the front door quietly, not sure what to expect. The scene that greeted her made her heart swell. All 5 children were asleep. The twins were curled up together on the couch under a blanket. Marcus was sprawled on the floor with his head on a pillow, still clutching his favorite comic book. Emma had fallen asleep in the armchair, her homework completed and neatly stacked on the side table. and little Chloe was tucked into Ryder's arms as he sat in the rocking chair, the plastic tiara still on his head, his eyes closed. Gunnar was in the kitchen, quietly loading the dishwasher. He looked up when Sarah entered and put a finger to his lips, pointing toward Ryder and Chloe. She wouldn't let him put her down, Gunnar whispered, said he was her new best friend. Sarah felt tears prick her eyes, but this time they were different. These weren't tears of humiliation or exhaustion. They were tears of gratitude, of relief, of hope. How did the meeting go? Gunnar asked softly. Really good. They told me about programs I can apply for, resources for Emma's dyslexia, after-school care options. Things I didn't even know existed. That's great, Sarah. You needed this. Ryder stirred, carefully standing up with Chloe still in his arms. Where's her room? Sarah led him down the narrow hallway to the tiny bedroom Chloe shared with the twins. Ryder laid her down gently, pulling the covers up to her chin. The little girl mumbled something in her sleep and rolled over, hugging her stuffed elephant. Back in the living room, Sarah struggled to find adequate words. I don't know how to thank you both. You have no idea what this means to me. Actually, we do, Ryder said. And this isn't a one-time thing, Sarah. You call us whenever you need us. Got it? Over the following months, it became a routine. Twice a month, sometimes more, members of the Hells Angels would show up at Sarah's house. They'd watch the kids while she attended meetings, went to therapy sessions she'd finally had time to schedule, or simply took a walk alone to clear her head. The neighbors whispered at first, shocked to see motorcycles parked outside the Mitchell house. But those whispers changed when they saw how the kids thrived, how Sarah started smiling again, how the whole family seemed lighter. Emma's grades improved with the new tutoring program. Marcus joined the soccer team because Sarah could finally afford the fees and had help with transportation. The twins made friends in their after-school art class. And Chloe had an entire motorcycle club wrapped around her tiny finger. Sarah had gone on that disastrous date expecting nothing. She'd been rejected, humiliated, dismissed. But in that moment of deepest disappointment, she'd found something far more valuable than romance. She'd found family. 18 months later, Sarah stood in the parking lot of Bakersfield Community College, her teaching certificate finally in hand. She'd completed the program while working full-time, something that would have been impossible without the support system that had unexpectedly entered her life. Her phone buzzed. A text from Ryder, "We're all here. Ready when you are." She walked to the graduation ceremony area, and there they were. Not just Ryder, Gunnar, and Smokey, but a dozen members of the Hells Angels Bakersfield chapter, sitting in the audience alongside her 5 children. Emma held Chloe on her lap. Marcus waved excitedly. The twins held up a hand-painted banner that read "Congrats, Mom" in rainbow letters. Mrs. Henderson sat next to them, dabbing her eyes with a tissue. Even some of Sarah's co-workers from the school had come. As Sarah walked across the stage to receive her certificate, the bikers stood up and cheered louder than anyone else in the auditorium. Several people turned to stare, but Sarah didn't care. These men had shown up for her in ways no one else had. After the ceremony, Chloe ran to her, arms outstretched. "Mommy, you did it." Sarah scooped her up, kissing her cheek. "We did it, baby. All of us." Ryder approached, his weathered face creased in a proud smile. "Told you that guy was going to regret walking out. Look at you now. Certified teacher. About to start that new job at the middle school. I couldn't have done any of this without you all," Sarah said, her voice thick with emotion. "You did this yourself," Gunnar corrected. "We just gave you a little breathing room." "The clubhouse is hosting a barbecue tomorrow," Smokey added. "You and the kids better be there. It's become a tradition, and Chloe promised she'd teach me that complicated handshake game." Sarah laughed, the sound coming easily now. "We wouldn't miss it." As the sun set over Bakersfield that evening, Sarah sat on her front porch watching her children play in the yard. Emma was teaching the twins a card game. Marcus practiced soccer tricks. Chloe chased fireflies with the pure joy only a 4-year-old could possess. 2 motorcycles pulled up. Ryder and Gunnar just checking in as they often did. "You good?" Ryder asked. Sarah nodded, and she meant it. "Yeah, I'm really good." Life hadn't turned out the way she'd planned. The fairy tale romance hadn't materialized. But she'd found something better. Genuine friendship, community, and the knowledge that family wasn't always about blood. Sometimes it was about people who showed up, who stayed, who saw your worth when you'd forgotten it yourself.